What is up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Mets'd podcast. We actually have some baseball things to talk about today. So excited. We're not going to, we'll talk about the bullpen at some point again because your guys' comments were super funny and we have even more to talk about now that we have some more projection systems out. And we saw your comments. We want to respond to a few of them. But we've got Andy Martino dropping a bit of a nuke on the Mets world today with a Vlad Guerrero Jr. rumor that the Mets have checked in on Vladdy Jr., which is awesome. We know we're not getting Roki Sasaki. He picked his final three teams. The Mets are not one of them. Elian Pena is the Mets' highest paid international free agent ever. They just signed him to a $5 million deal. So we're going to break down what we know about Elian Pena as much as you can for a 17-year-old who's never played professional baseball at any level whatsoever. And then just a little bit more Pete Alonso talk as well, because John Heyman and Joel Sherman dropped an article as well talking about the Mets and Pete Alonso. There's weirdly a lot to talk about. That's why you guys are here. Thank you so much for stopping in with us. Make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel if you have not yet done so. Drop a like on the YouTube video. It really does help support what we do over here. And if you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download it, and subscribe. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Mets'd. I don't think we can shout out TikTok anymore. It's like probably gone by Monday. So
yeah, so, no worries. Like good riddance, I guess, to TikTok. We'll see you later.
Yeah, whatever. We didn't really use it that much anyway. So for Mets'd, it really didn't serve much purpose. But the other ones, you should follow us. Now, I feel like we should start with Vlad Jr. because I think that's the
100%.
hot topic that everybody wants to go over. When I saw it, I think me and you, we texted as soon as the rumor came out. We both had similar opinions of, I don't think this is a bullshit rumor by any means. I do think that where in this case, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a line between how real this should be perceived. And I think a lot of things can be true with this Vlad Jr. rumor. I tweeted this verbatim that it's probably not super realistic the Mets trade for Vlad Guerrero Jr. right now, while also they're definitely checking in because they want him on this team. If it's not this year, it's next year. And all while that's happening, they certainly want to put pressure on Pete Alonso to make a decision. This also is interesting because it coincides with the rumor that came out later at night from John Heyman that the Mets have told Pete Alonso's camp, we need a decision sooner rather than later, which also comes on the heels of 2 days ago when apparently there was a report that came out that the Mets and Pete Alonso still had a significant gap in the finances, which came the day after, or 2 days after, Pete Alonso allegedly came to the Mets with an exclusive offer on a short-term deal. So the fact that all of these four things have happened in, 5 or 6 days, they're definitely not connected. But while all that is true, and I think the Mets still want Pete Alonso back on the terms that they want him back at, it seems like the people in this organization are very concerned with the Vladimir Guerrero situation, and their best-case scenario is having him on this team as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it on the podcast before. There's very few prospect packages that we would say no to that would involve bringing in Vlad Guerrero Jr. based on
realistic for a 1-year deal.
Well, yes, realistic for a 1-year deal. I mean, I've seen some of the ones on Twitter where it's like, how about you guys take Brett Beatty and no pitching prospects, Jeff McNeil, throw out some crazy names out there. I mean, listen, if we're throwing our hat into the ring for trade rumors, I mean, Matt Allen, Alex Ramirez, and Kevin Parada, who says no?
No, our social media intern cooked on that one. But I think while there's a lot of jest and while always the baseball Twitter trade community is ridiculous whenever there's mock trades, there definitely is a bit of a push and pull as to what a realistic offer Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is. One of the main reasons for that is, first of all, he's good as shit. There were a lot of people who were responding to us on Twitter saying, like, no, Vlad's not worth it. Like, he's not really like a game breaker. He's not a difference maker. And just to refresh people on Vladimir Guerrero Jr., he's 26 years old. He has a career 140 WRC plus. He's had 2 seasons where he's been at least 60% better than league average, or the 160 WRC plus. He has a career, where is it here? 288, 363, 500 triple slash. And that includes 3 legitimately bad seasons that he's had in his career. 3 of his 6 seasons as a major leaguer have not been good, which again, that might go against part of my point being like he's a true game breaker. He's one of the 10 best hitters in the league. But this is, I think, 1, the average growing pains of someone who came up when they were 20 years old. 2, this Blue Jays team itself has had some strange oscillations in the last few years for a lot of their key players. They had to spend a period of time in a minor league ballpark. They've had a lot of turnover with that lineup. They've had a lot of turnover with management. They don't seem like an organization that things run particularly smoothly. So sometimes it's not the best situation for a young player or any player to be in. But he's that good. Like, this guy is one of the 10 best hitters in baseball and a game breaker to the highest degree.
First, we want to tell you about the sponsor of today's episode, Southern New Hampshire University. Are you someone who feels like they're stuck at a job that they don't enjoy? You feel like you were unable to advance your career due to lack of education or experience? Maybe you chose the wrong major in college and it's holding you back. That is where SNHU comes in to help. At SNHU, you have the opportunity to pursue a new degree that can lead to pushing your career forward and helping you improve your career prospects. SNHU has one of the largest accredited nonprofit online degree offerings in the country, and it's radically affordable. Their online tuition rates are some of the lowest in the nation. There are so many degrees available at SNHU, including a sports management program. What we love about SNHU is that your courses are taught by faculty with real-world experiences, so you will have the opportunity to connect with people in the industry as well when you're done. And when you graduate, SNHU will still be there to help you as you begin with your job hunt. You may also be eligible for financial aid or have previous college credits that could fast-track your degree at SNHU. So go to snhu.edu/Mets'd podcast and learn how you can get started with a sports management degree today. Thank you to SNHU for sponsoring today's episode. Yeah, the name that we talked about this last year, funny enough, when we were bringing up the Pete Alonso possible trade rumors and what could that even look like. And it always went back to Paul Goldschmidt because they were similar age. Paul Goldschmidt was a better player than Pete Alonso had been. Paul Goldschmidt comps better to the value that Vlad Jr. would give you in this 1-year span on an expiring contract.
I'll even push back on that. I think that when you think about a Vlad Guerrero trade, you kind of have to start with Juan Soto and Mookie Betts.
You think so?
And Francisco Lindor. I really think he's that good. I think that.
Listen, I'm a big Vlad guy. It's one of those things where his top level is similar to those guys offensively, of course, because he can hit 40 plus homers, 100 RBIs, 1,000 OPS. Like, those numbers are going to be gaudy. They're going to be fascinating. Whether you're an old school or new school baseball guy, you will see Vlad Guerrero Jr.'s numbers and be like, this is one of the best hitters in baseball. The only thing that's interesting about it is how much it has oscillated. And I think maybe that's the one concern that would put him closer to the Paul Goldschmidt level. The thing where I was going with this is that Paul Goldschmidt on that expiring contract going to the Cardinals, Luke Weaver, Carson Kelly, Andrew Young. Luke Weaver was the top prospect in that trade, and he was the number 3 prospect in the Cardinals org at the time. You probably need to give a little bit more if you're the Mets. It's probably going to be one of Jet and Sproat as being the headliners in that trade.
Yeah.
But I think I'd really be okay. Especially, I'd more so be okay trading Jet. But if we trade Sproat, I would really like to know that we're bringing Vlad Jr. in for multiple years afterwards.
And I wonder if that would be part of this. I'm honestly just not sure. And I think that's also weirdly something that would work in the Mets' favor in some kind of trade negotiation like this, similar to how it worked in the Dodgers' favor with Mookie Betts specifically, because there's not many teams in baseball that realistically can sign Vlad Guerrero Jr. to the contract that he wants and are willing to do it. It seems like the only 3 teams that probably would do it next year when he's expected to be a free agent are, truthfully, the Mets, the Yankees, and the Red Sox. Truthfully. Yeah. Maybe the Cubs wind up doing it. Maybe Tom Ricketts finally wakes up and is like, oh, I'm a big market team. I should spend like that. But it seems like he's unwilling to do that. So then you've already kind of shrunk the list of suitors. And then the list of suitors shrinks more greatly when you think of who's willing to make a trade right now, because the Yankees just spent money for a 1-year first baseman, and the Red Sox still have Tristan Casas. There's no indication that he's going anywhere. And they have Rafael Devers, and they have Masataka Yoshida. So at that point, in terms of who's willing to make a trade for Vlad Guerrero Jr. right now, it's only the New York Mets. And then what you have to do is you have to play the balance game of value, which is how are the Blue Jays actually willing to trade him? Because the Blue Jays, I said this to you in text before, they should probably be looking to sell and tear this thing down.
Yes.
This team, as of right now, is not good enough to make a run, and their 2 best players, 2 most valuable players, are both going to be free agents at the end of the year, in Vlad and Bo Bichette. At the same time, over the weekend, the Blue Jays just signed the closer to big money in Jeff Hoffman. That's not exactly something a team does when they're ready to start tearing things down.
And then they traded for Andres Jimenez and took his contract for no reason.
Yes, well, because that's another part of it too. Because I think about the Mookie Betts trade a lot, and people still go back and clown on that deal. And well, yeah, like Alex Verdugo was a big-time prospect at the time. He profiles a 2-4 win player. Jeter Downs had some really good stats in the upper minors, and that was light. But the whole reason it was really light is because they took on David Price's monster contract from the Red Sox. The Blue Jays have tons of money and are literally begging people to take it. Yeah. There is no contract on that team that's bad enough to couple with Vlad Guerrero Jr. to kill the price. And the Blue Jays don't care about taking money off their books. Again, I think maybe, they want to accelerate the rebuild, get some money off their books. But Jose Barrios is one of the, I think the guy who signed for the longest on their team. The dude's a metronome. He's a very stable pitcher. He's making $20 million a year. You don't trade that. Kevin Gausman took a huge step back last year, but I think he has 2 years and $50 million left in that deal, or 3 for $75. That's not exactly an albatross. So there's no way to really lessen this price. You're only negotiating against yourself, but you basically have to negotiate against the Blue Jays' ego in admitting that this era for the Blue Jays is over.
Yeah, the only thing that I could see if it is a price thing for the Blue Jays and it's like value acquisition, whatever it's going to be called here, is that Vlad, I think, is his arbitration case is like 28 million. He's, I think, due for this upcoming season. So maybe they feel like that 28 million. Maybe if you move like Chris Bassett, I think is due like 20 million as well. So maybe Bassett would be a guy that you throw along just to clear it and be like 50 million clear now, along with all these prospects. And now we can go after a Bregman to play third base, or we can go after maybe a Pete Alonso to play first base in a short period of time. Like I still think they're way better off with Vlad Jr. and having him on their team in this scenario. And it is confusing to understand their steps forward because this roster is putrid. It's bad. It's really, really bad. This is not a competitive team in the state that it is. And that's with one of the best hitters in baseball, Vlad Jr. But it feels like, and I agree with you that it feels like they're still trying while they have these guys here.
Yeah, but again, like I think we talked about this too a few weeks ago. Like a big reason they're still trying is because the American League stinks. Like they
major stinks.
They're squinting and telling themselves they have a path forward, which is still why I think right now a Vlad Guerrero Jr. trade is just simply not realistic, which sucks. But I really just don't think that they're actually going to do it. Let
me tell you this. On Fangraphs right now, I know this is projected lineup and all that. Can you tell me who's projected to hit fourth right now for the Blue Jays in 2025 according to Fangraphs against right-handed pitching?
Who's projected to hit fourth right now for the Blue Jays? Alejandro Kirk.
Nope, he's fifth. Will Wagner is projected to hit fourth.
Oh, Billy's
Will
son.
Wagner. Then you have, and I know you like Ernie Clement, good ball player, but yeah. I don't know if you want him playing 162 games at third base. Nathan Lucas, Joey Loperfido. The bench has Tyler Heineman, Leo Jimenez, David Schneider, Jonathan Clase. Like, this team is quite literally one injury away from being one of the worst teams in baseball.
Yeah, and even without an injury, they're definitely going to be one of the bad teams in baseball. One of the teams of all time for sure. I also want to jump back to the beginning about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and like having the oscillations in his game for the last few years. He hits the ball so hard, so consistently that I'm never really ever going to be worried about it. The whole thing that's held back Vlad as a young player, and I say held back generously, because even these seasons where people are like, he's terrible, he's never been a below average hitter.
Plus,
yeah, the year when he sucked, which was 2023, which is the year a lot of people point towards, it was a 118 WRC plus. That's kind of not that far away from where Pete Alonso sits year to year. No. So Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s floor is the guy who we're kind of debating him against, one like an average season for him. So that's one thing. And two, there's no one in baseball hits the ball harder than him. Like, he has regular exit velocities of 115, 116, 117. No one else in the league does that. The only thing, again, that really holds him back is that sometimes the ball isn't in the air, it's on the ground. Yeah. And when the ball's in the ground, even if you hit 115 miles an hour, your best case scenario is a single. You're still likely to get out. And he doesn't pull the ball that much. Like, he has a true all fields approach, which I think a lot of times helps him. It's how he maintains his high batting average. But that's why sometimes there have been oscillations the last few years with his power. And a guy like Vlad Guerrero Jr., similar to a guy like Pete Alonso, he plays first base. He's kind of a bigger dude. He doesn't play a lot of defense.
The weight's oscillated a lot too.
Yeah, you're not going to have as much total value from a player if the ball's not leaving the yard 35 plus times a year. But I think the fact that he has shown, it's not been consistent growth, but he's had, again, 2 of his last 4 years are some of the best offensive seasons we've had in the last 10 years of baseball, besides Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. And one of the years in between was another fucking incredible year. A 290 career average with 30 homers per 162 games. This is
early 20s.
To me, this is one of the 10 best hitters in baseball, and that's why it's worth going all out and possibly giving up this prospect capital to get him a year ahead of his free agency. Just get him in the door right now.
No, I totally agree. I think it would be really nice to have the group of Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto around him as well, to be like, you don't love it here? You don't want to play here the rest of your career? Let's make it happen before spring training even starts, before opening day.
And think about this for a hot second. Like, you start the game, you're playing the Mets. You're pitcher A, and leading off the game is Francisco Lindor. That's going to be a tough at-bat.
Pretty good.
Hitting second is Juan Soto.
Pretty good.
It's going to be a really tough at-bat. Hitting third is Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Pretty good.
Suddenly, right now, like, you can. It's not as good exactly as the Dodgers, but you can squint and think about the fact that right now, 2 of the 3 players that we just named are younger than 27 years old. Where all 3 of those guys in the Dodgers are over 30. One of them is 35 or 36, and one's 32 or 33. It's probably a 2 or 3 year window where now suddenly we could have the best 1, 2, 3 in baseball. And once you have that, like, that's what the whole point of this thing with Vlad is. I think that's the whole mantra of this Mets front office led by David Stearns. you take your shots when the shots are there to be taken.
And
You don't spend the $20 million on Starling Marte. You don't spend the $20 million on Tanner Scott. You wait and you spend the $40 million on Vlad Guerrero because he's a fucking game breaker. And if you want to win the World Series, you need game breakers. He is one of the few guys in baseball that is.
I mean, that's even why you saw the Mets last year throw that money at Yoshinobu Yamamoto. He obviously took the Dodgers at the end, but the stuff that he had made him a game breaker. And if there's ever something that love about David Stearns, it seems like he really understands who these guys are and who these guys aren't. And he has not, for lack of a better term, like made the mistake yet of picking the wrong guy.
No, and you just simply, like, you need the dogs to fight. Like, you could be scrappy and win 91 games in the regular season, and you can win the NLDS, but then when you have to go and face the big boys in Los Angeles, like, you need dudes.
Need some
like,
dogs.
You got to get off the bus and you got to be ready to go. And like that's what getting a guy like Vlad is. And I think that is what this team has been focused on. I think that really underscores this entire offseason, the way the Mets have gone about the Pete Alonso negotiations, because everything with Pete makes logical sense to where homegrown player, 30-40 homer guy, like get his number retired, all that ooey gooey fun stuff, that's sentimental shit. But there's many more questions about the next 5 years of Pete Alonso than there are about the next 5 years of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. It's not even close.
I'll also tell you this: Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in 5 years will be younger than Pete Alonso is right now, I think. So there's also Pete Alonso's what, 31?
Yeah. Vlad's turning 26 when this year begins.
Okay,
so
and how old's Pete right now?
Pete's 30 right now.
Yeah, so they'll be about
age.
The same age.
Yeah,
which is also, I think, really important. Like, love Pete, would be happy if he came back. But you can't tease me with this Vlad Guerrero Jr. stuff. Like, if Vlad Guerrero Jr. is a possibility, you've got to snatch that possibility at all costs, just like they did with Soto.
Totally. No, because again, like, he's a unicorn. Soto was a unicorn. Yoshinobu Yamamoto was a unicorn. Francisco Lindor is a unicorn. Like, players who are projected to be like 5, 6, possibly 7 win players with 300 batting average and 40 home runs. They don't shake free on the open market ever. Like, not ever, but like, this is a once every few years kind of thing. And we can be lucky enough to get 3 of them in a 5-year window, which is exactly the dream and the hope when a guy like Steve Cohen buys your team. Like, this is why you do this stuff. This is how the Dodgers assembled this monster that they have. Like, this is how you go and win a World Series. And he would be instrumental on the path to that point.
I was just going to say, let's just take a step back for a second. One, this was not a negative Pete conversation. This is a positive Vlad conversation. Still happy for Pete. Hope things go well for him in the Mets. But take a step back. How fucking awesome is it that, like, these are real conversations. These are things that, like, we would talk about, and it's like, man, like, how are we not in on Bryce Harper and Manny Machado and like those names? And now it's like, anybody who's everybody, the Mets are one of the 3 teams every single time to be interested in a guy.
I mean, we said a few minutes ago, like, right now, when you look at the entire league of who has the prospect capital, the willingness, the balls, and the money to actually execute a trade for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on a rental and hope you can re-sign him, the only option right now is the New York Mets. And
you mentioned the Yankees as well. He's like very openly said, I will never play for the New York Yankees in my life. Yeah. He said, I think he was like, I'd rather quit baseball than play for him.
Which famously, Ken Griffey Jr. did that too. I get money's green. Like, I don't know what's going to happen when push comes to shove there. But again, another part of this, like we talked about a lot this week off air, as you and I have our conversations, but the Baseball Prospectus top 101 prospects came out, and there were 5 Mets in the top 75 of that list.
Yes.
Like, we've done a lot in a short period of time to really beef up this farm system. And we probably have 8 guys in the top 200 of all prospects in baseball. So we're actually at a point right now where it could possibly be time to cash in. And again, like in a perfect world, and a lot of people said this to us on Twitter, I'd rather get Vladimir Guerrero Jr. just for money, not spend the prospect capital, be able to keep the prospects and get him next year. But there's a gaping hole in this Mets team right now at first base. And a lot of this stuff with Pete Alonso, it just doesn't, I still think it's a better than 50% chance he's back on this team, but it's not a sure thing at all. And you have a gaping hole at first base or third base, depending on where Mark Vientos is next year. And this is the best way in all baseball to fill that hole. And when you have Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and when you have Juan Soto in his prime and Francisco Lindor, who's over 30 years old but still in his prime, every year is valuable. It's hard to worry about wasting a year of those guys prime together because I want to hold on to some prospects. I want to hold on to the prospects, of course, but, and we're going to talk about a little bit later with Elian Pena, how to think about prospects just in general. At some point, if you can get a dog, like, you go and get the dog. Like, and it's funny. Right now, a Yankee fan wouldn't give you this answer, but if we get a few years down the line, I think they would still tell you almost undoubtedly the Juan Soto trade was worth it.
Yeah, of course. World Series run. You got 3 wins away from winning it all. It's always worth it.
Totally, 100%. Again, I don't think they'll tell you that now, and every Mets fan's probably laughing because, we got them. They gave up the
Of course,
pieces.
yeah.
But
it's even better.
If you can just trade one of Sproat or Jet and then probably 2 more pieces lower down. Maybe one more exciting guy and then one
Maybe
more
like
mid
that's
guy.
Tong or McLean. That could be one of those guys, maybe, or maybe even Clifford.
Clifford's probably lower. It'd be something like Jet, McLean, Baez might be hefty. Maybe get back a pitcher. But I think that's like you give up 3 top like 120-ish prospects in baseball. Maybe you get like a Barrios or a Bassett back, or even the 1 year of Gausman, 2 years of Gausman back. Suddenly you're cooking with gas.
And we know the Mets got money. They got less money they've spent this year than they did last year. So there's definitely some room there. Now, just to briefly glaze over this a little bit in our international free agent pool prospect portion, we're not getting Roki Sasaki. Came out that he has top 3 teams. It's the Padres, the Dodgers, and the Blue Jays. I don't think the Blue Jays are getting them. I think it's the Dodgers. Until it's not the Dodgers, I don't think it is anyone else.
Yeah, I'd say it's 90-10 Dodgers Padres. The Dodgers said they had their another meeting with him a couple days ago, and they said the stars were there. So I'm sure Shohei Ohtani like clinked his ring on the table, Pat Riley style, was like, "You want to get another one of these?"
Yoshinobu Yamamoto, I'm sure, was part of it. I'm sure he's a star as well for him.
I don't know. Like, again, like whatever Roki Sasaki thinks is best for him, I'm not going to chastise him. It definitely would suck if the Dodgers get a free superstar. If the Dodgers just get like one of the top 3 overall prospects in baseball for free, like that would definitely suck. I don't know if he's a prospect, he's a professional baseball player, but he would be better than everyone who's going to play baseball this year that's not debuted yet. Like it's just it's superstar shit. It's just it would suck, but I don't know, it should be better.
Next CBA. Do you think there's a chance, because it's been floated before about an international prospect pool draft, because I think things like this, especially with now the influx of more Asian players coming over in the last few years and seemingly only picking the Dodgers, it seems like we might be headed towards that, just because, not even like to complain as a Mets fan, or even if you're a Yankees fan or a Red Sox fan, but like the Kansas City Royals just simply never have a shot to get in it like one of these guys ever.
Well, I think Major League Baseball tried to circumvent this by giving the teams who are in the bottom 15 in like revenue, or the 15 small market teams or the 15 big market teams, more international bonus money every year and extra compensatory draft picks. Like we've talked about it before. The teams who are poorer, I'm doing air quotes right now for people on the audio side, because all these owners are very, very wealthy. They give them more money to spend internationally every single year.
Ooh, wait, interesting. Weird like thing I've thought about too. Like when you think about a lot of the teams in the middle too, not as many, or the smaller market teams, not as many Latin American players, it feels like, as there are on the teams that have the more money side, even though we know the Latin players end up costing less when they have free agency as opposed to the American players. What an interesting thought that could be. I don't have the exact numbers, but just conceptually thinking of teams' rosters, it feels like it's that way.
I think it also could be like a correlation causation thing happening in your brain, because if the teams that, again, are poor, big, huge, massive air quotes right now, there's a good chance many of them, not all of them, because some teams are very good at this, but there's a good chance many of them are spending less money year over year on things like development, possibly things like scouting, things like extra coaches in the lower levels. So it's probably just less of a hit rate for those guys. Because again, they have more money to spend, but sometimes they might just be like, we want floor over ceiling, so you spread that money around more, and then you have worse coaches, so there's a less chance of those players hitting. Whereas the teams with bigger money, teams like the Mets, the Red Sox, the Dodgers, the Yankees, you're just putting more into all these international players because you want to, and you want them to be great, and you want them to flourish. You're willing to spend the money up front to get the rewards later down the line, where the other teams are not. So again, man, this would be a fun thing to study. I'm sure Baseball America Perspectives has done studies in this in the past. But I think the bigger part of the international draft is that, and the Sasaki situation, is that it was not that cool to all these young Latin players who were signing in this period, because this was theoretically a bomb dropped on the 2 international signing periods, because Sasaki could have signed for the 2024 period, but now, of course, he wanted more money, so he waited to the 2025 period. There was a scramble seemingly this week between the Dodgers and the Padres in losing some of their guys, because they had to decommit players that they could have had signed when they were like 13 years old, which is also super fucked up by the international system. And another reason why they probably would be really hard for them to implement a draft, because we're 3-4 years ahead of this. There was a report that the first time the Mets got a look at Elian Pena was 2021. He was born in 2007. He was like 13 or 14 years old the first time the Mets said they got to look at him. I'm sure they were, because I'm sure this is just a very nefarious thing that happens. I really love that Juan Soto had a presence this week at the Mets Dominican Academy, Dominican Republic, that he was there talking to players as they were getting their degrees, graduating from high school and college equivalency. So cool they can see a guy like Juan Soto and look up to him, and that Juan Soto, even after becoming the highest paid athlete in the history of Earth, is willing to go and speak to these, again, children who have their entire lives ahead of them, and many of them will not hit as baseball players. So it's really cool that our superstars, the guys becoming the face of our franchise, is willing to spend time down there and be an important figure of those players. But again, that's also the problem with this draft. I think it's so nefarious that they're almost scared to bring this stuff above board because you have 13-year-olds signing multi-million-dollar commitments with professional baseball organizations, and then you're stuck. Like, you can't do anything.
Well, dude, I'll never forget the story of when I was at the MLB draft combine and I was sitting next to a scout. Won't name the team or anything like that, but I was sitting next to a scout for a certain team. Very obvious. He was wearing the team stuff everywhere. And he's on the phone in Spanish, and knowing enough Spanish, I could hear what he was saying. And he was telling whoever he was on the phone with, screaming, saying, "You need to tell them you are 15 years old. You need to tell them you were 15. I was like, so this is either an older guy that he wants to sign, but they won't sign because he's too old, so he wants to be younger, or this is someone who's really young and they want to sign him before he actually starts to hit like maturity level and puberty. It seems like it's so corrupt. It's so crazy. It's also like weirdly like beneficial for these guys too. Like, you can't blame them at all for wanting to do this on the player side.
Yeah, no, it's totally the devil you know, and it gives the opportunity for a lot of, I don't know, relatively like very, very poor children to give their families like generational wealth. Like, that's something that's insane.
Elian Pena, regardless of where he grew up, what he is now a 17-year-old who just received $5 million from the New York Mets. What would you do growing up in Westfield, New Jersey with $5 million, a very affluent town?
When I was 17, I don't know. Like, I might not be here right now. Someone handed me $5 million at that time. But also, like, we poo-poo the fact that, like, I think the lowest bonus that can be given now, or the minimum, is what, like $10,000, something like that? It's 10 or 5 or $1,000. That's probably a life-changing amount of money for these players who are considered afterthoughts and for these international players, international like pool players. We've heard a guy like Wilmer Flores be like, and you've talked about this too, I think in the college class you took.
Yes.
You're dropping young kids from the Dominican Republic, Venezuela, whatever country you signed them to, into places like Savannah, Georgia, used to be Appalachia, the Mountain West, and you're like, here's a host family. You want to play baseball, be away from your family, learn English, and figure out food every single day? Like, what? Like, it's such a crazy system that happens. I think it would be, again, but I also don't know. Like, I don't know enough about it to say I think the international draft would be better. Like, I would love to talk to people who are experts on this matter, who've had experience, like boots on the ground, hands in the dirt with stuff like this, because I don't really feel comfortable commenting on what's better or worse based on just surface level we know. But just from this outside looking in, the system is completely batshit crazy.
It's crazy. It's insane. No, and what was it, an article last year, I think, by The Athletic that like talked about it even more in depth than we've even known. We were like, this is legitimately insane. Now, that being said,
someone got in a ton of trouble earlier this offseason. I forgot what team it was, but for lying about someone's age. Who was it? But it was a story that was swept away so quickly.
Yeah, of course it was, because it's a bad look, and Major League Baseball doesn't want that. I don't blame them. That being said, Elian Pena, $5 million, biggest bonus ever given to a Mets international free agent. The largest was actually last year to Giovanni Rodriguez at 2.8. Alvarez was also a previous high at $2.7 million. Just for reference, our whole bonus pool was $6.2 million, so he got basically all of it. The Mets had $1.2 million to spread around the rest. That being said, he's considered to be one of the top prospects in this international class. He's 17 years old, so he's a little bit older than a lot of these guys even sign at sometimes. Sometimes they sign at 16, but he had a birthday, I believe, in October, so he's a young 17. Mm-hmm. What's really cool is that he got a 65 hit grade, according to MLB Pipeline, and the most recent prospects that got 65 hit grade on the field, Wander Franco, Vlad Guerrero Jr. Two amazing hitters, two amazing prospects, two literally possibly the best prospects that we've had in the modern time. Like, two of the best ones. Off the field, bad. On the field, sick.
Yeah, but I also think it's important to ground people and understand how much of a crapshoot the international bonus pool is. Because there's been a lot of talk today on Twitter about how high would you rank Elian Pena in the Mets prospects. Some people are saying things like top 5, one of the best prospects in the whole league right now. Truthfully, like there's no way that Elian Pena, as a 17-year-old, never played any professional baseball, should crack the Mets top 8, because the Mets have like probably 8 borderline top 100 prospects. He's probably a fringy top 10 prospect in the Mets system. And just as an exercise right now, before we talk about Pena more, because I think he is very talented, we should give him his credit as a player.
Yes,
I want to ground all you fellow Mets fans out there. I'm going to go back to the 2019-2020 international signing period. So this is about 5 years ago now. A lot of these players have had a chance to develop. They're at least in their 20s now, and they're getting through the minor leagues, and they're becoming players who are, at least some of them, few of them, approaching the major league level. I'm going to read off the top 10 guys, Mark, and I want you to give me, and top 10 guys in terms of their bonus.
Okay.
I want you to tell me what you think about these players.
All right, hit me.
Okay, so number 10 with the Philadelphia Phillies, Huascar Garcia.
Don't know a thing about him.
All right, that's a good one. Number 9 from the Los Angeles Dodgers, Luis Rodriguez.
Ooh, I have some of his cards. He can't hit.
There you go. There's another one. Number 8 from the Minnesota Twins, Emmanuel Rodriguez.
Dog. Love Emmanuel
Dog.
Rodriguez.
Monster.
Awesome. He's sick.
Yeah. Number 7 from the Miami Marlins, Jose Salas.
No. I mean, I think he technically might have made the majors, but he's a glove first guy who can't hit a lick.
Number 6 from the Detroit Tigers, Roberto Campos.
Who?
Number 5 from the Chicago Cubs, Ronier Quintero.
Yeah, okay, next. By the way, super wrong about Jose Salas. I was thinking of Jose Devers. Jose Salas is 21 and still not hitting at A-ball, so that's concerning.
Number 4 from the Kansas City Royals, Eric Pena.
I've heard the name.
He had a moment. Yeah, he had a moment for sure.
That's it. He's had a moment.
Number 3 from the Texas Rangers, Byron Laura.
I mean, I think he was a part of a car accident off the field. He was a big prospect,
terrible.
but he was not great on the field.
Number 2 from the formerly Oakland Athletics, Robert Poisson.
I mean, there's a good chance that you could strike out Robert Poisson. That guy, I feel so bad because he was neck and neck with, and I think one's going to be Jason Dominguez, right?
Number 1, Jason Dominguez, New York Yankees.
That was like a huge debate in the card community. It was like Jason Dominguez, Yankee, you got to get his card.
Poisson.
Robert Poisson
shortstop.
is like a shortstop. He's the value guy out in Oakland. He's going to be just as good. I'll tell you this. I think I said this last year. This was my crazy take about him, and it was with the A's. I was like, you just call him up and see what he's got. He had too much hype. What do you got to lose if you give him a week in the majors instead of like playing Nick Allen again for the 100th time who can't hit? See if Robert Poisson can figure out the majors. He can't. See you later. Goodbye, buddy. Like, I don't know why teams don't do that more.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, we just want to frame it that.
Just because bad though. Yeah.
Just because you're the top international prospect. And again, I'm going to give Pena's flowers. Scouts love him. He has a compact swing. I saw him comped to Rafael Devers by Francis Romero,
which is awesome.
That's also for the crowd out there. People are like, how could we sign a shortstop with Francisco Lindor? Every single one of these, again, children. Are shortstops.
He's 17. What do you mean? 4 more years, Francisco Lindor will be... How old will Lindor be in 4 years?
He's going to be
35. That's the best case scenario. He comes up by 21.
I saw someone killing Michael Mayer for being like, can't believe the Mets would sign a shortstop with Lindor in the team. It's like that. Every single one of these children is a shortstop.
Michael Mayer said that?
No, someone was grilling Michael Mayer saying that. He was like, dude, what are you talking about?
He's smart. Like, I couldn't expect him to have a take like that.
No, but again, crazy bat speed. Mark, you said about the 65 hit grade. That was only Wander and Vladdy. And like, there's also, again, a lot of these international periods. The top prospect is awesome.
Yes.
Wander Franco is top international prospect. Vladimir Guerrero is got a top 5 contract. Luis Robert doesn't really count, but like he was a top signing one time in the international period. So like, Yoel Moncada, I know we get different, but like, again, it technically worked out. He got to the major leagues, but there's such a long road for these. Again, I'll say it for like the 12th time. Children.
Yeah.
We can't really expect the world from these, one more time, children.
One thing I will say is when you look at the guys that have hit, they do tend to have, out of any of the tools that grade well for guys that end up being those guys, it is always a hit tool first. It is not the easiest thing to necessarily teach someone who is a horrible hitter to just be like, hey, now hit professional caliber pitching. That's really hard. So when you look at guys like, even that have busted out, a lot of them had 45, 50 hit grade. You were really relying on the upside that they'd fill into their body, figure things out because you liked what you saw.
Totally. And there was a great article on The Athletic by Will Salmon that was talking about Pena and everything he does well. He had a quote from Steve Barningham, who was the Mets' former scouting director until last year. And he said, when I first saw him, I thought to myself, yeah, that's the best player in this class. There's no doubt in my mind. That was the best player in this class. It's not even close. And they talked about Tommy Tanis, who's also, I think, one of the Mets scouting directors for a while.
Met, I think, yeah.
Yeah, both former guys. This is the package we all look for. Someone who controls the strike zone. When he hits the baseball, he actually does a lot of damage with it. So you have to pitch him carefully. He's going to have a chance to be a high on-base guy. He's going to have a chance to be a power guy. When you have this, it's rare. And there's another quote later from Tanis that said, if he's in the major leagues when he's 20 years old, I don't think anybody would be surprised. Another quote from Barningham that said, this guy's bat to ball skill is similar to what you see for a top 5 pick in the Major League Baseball draft. One of these guys from who's a 1 in every 5 years type of player in the international.
I mean, that's all. Again, 65 hit tool doesn't happen a lot for these international free agent guys very often. The last 2, pretty dang good.
Yeah, and he has a chance to be super special. It just Definitely give the kid a break and let's see how he plays against professionals first.
Always, yeah. There's a huge amount of improvement and development that needs to happen for us to honestly, truthfully, give a shit at all about this kid.
And again, like he is awesome right now. Like
Yes.
he's going to be again like probably a fringy Mets top 10 prospect immediately. But let's see what happens.
Yeah, like Leo Dallas DeVries, what do they call him? Is he the mutant? Is that what they call him?
El Mutano, I think.
Yeah, whatever they call him, but it's one of the coolest nicknames ever.
Mutanto.
He had a lot of hype. He got to A-ball, started the year incredibly slow at a super young age.
Then turned it on.
You're like, oh shit, now this is the guy. Sebastian Walcott, another young guy, started slow, turned it on. Then you have Ethan Salas.
Ethan Salas. He was a $5.6 million bonus. He's considered like the can't miss of can't miss. And he even has had some really big streaks. Again, he's playing AA baseball like 18 years old, which is literally obscene. Like he's a college freshman playing in AA baseball. It's just stupid as hell. Like Jose Perdomo, who was a $5 million guy last year, the highest guy in the whole thing for the Braves. Yeah, 60 hit grade. But again, it's just these are very young children. It takes a very long time. I would tell
I think that's
Mets
the sentence.
fans,
They are children.
doesn't it? They are children. I want to say as many times as I possibly can so it locks in that these are kids. Like if there's a 17-year-old playing high school baseball somewhere, you're not grilled into him being like, this is one of the best prospects in baseball. No, it just can't be. So it's just, I don't know. In 1 year's time, let's think about Elian Pena. But right now, let the kid enjoy his day.
Yes, no, let him enjoy it. Congratulations to him and his family. $5 million is a shit ton of money. Just changed a lot of lives over there. Awesome.
And congratulations to the rest of the Mets class too.
Yes, we will probably have someone on to talk more about this on another episode. But truthfully, right now, just don't have the information for you guys. We're not going to lie and pretend like we do.
No, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's really okay. To wrap up the episode, a little more bullpen talk for you. We've got some new projections out there. We saw some of you guys were either dead in agreement with us of like, wow, yes, this is exactly what the Mets need to do with the bullpen, or no, you're an idiot. You got to sign Tanner Scott, which again, I still can't wrap my head around that take whatsoever. But got some new projections, James. What do those projections say about this Mets bullpen? Also, what did we learn about Reed Garrett versus Tanner Scott that we got to tell the people?
Well, two things. First, the Oopsie model came out on Fangraphs. I want to shout out the Oopsie model. It's done by Jordan Rosenblum, who I don't know if to call him a colleague or a friend. I compete in some fantasy baseball leagues with him. The dude is stupid smart. He's ridiculous. It pulls a lot of what most other projection models have, but it adds a lot more stuff. Plus, which is the model Eno Saris and Ethan Moore came out with a couple years ago that we cite a lot in the show. Max Bay was part of that too. Is now back working with the Dodgers. It's I don't know. I think it takes a projection model a few years to know how good it is because you just want to see how it stacks up against real results. But if you subscribe to The Athletic, you've been getting what were the first inklings of this projection model the last few years because Eno and Jordan would put them out on a spreadsheet that they would send out. And it was really good for pitching. I've used it for fantasy baseball the last few years. It winds up being one of my favorite tools to use for baseball for projecting pitchers. So the fact that that's being looped into this model, I tend to think it has a really good chance for projecting pitchers because a lot of the other models, ATC, the Bat, Steamer, it does better with hitters than pitchers. And this model, Oopsie, which pulls a lot of stuff plus, it said the Mets, as currently constructed, have the 7th best bullpen by ERA plus, which takes ERA and naturalize it for a league context and stay on where you're playing. 7th best bullpen in baseball, as currently constructed. Better than the Mariners, better than the Braves, better than the Dodgers, better than the Orioles, better than the Rays. The 7th best bullpen in baseball, which again, that would be ambitious even by my standards, but it loves Edwin Diaz, it loves Daniel Nunez, and it loves our boy Reed Garrett.
As it should. They're all good pitchers. The funny thing, because we were talking about, and we're going to have an episode out in a couple weeks, or at some point in the next 3 weeks when James goes away on vacation, but we're going to have an episode going over the Mets killers. We're making a Mets killer bracket. And just like through our 4-hour-long conversation we had just figuring out the names, this came up. And we were laughing because a lot of the comment section was like, Reed Garrett's not a major league pitcher. Like, you guys are idiots. You don't know what you're talking about. Reed Garrett had a higher K rate, lower walk rate last year than Tanner Scott. The only thing you're looking at is ERA. And I get it. I understand why people look at ERA. Like, it totally is not valueless. It's not a stat that isn't important. But the idea is that it's a little bit more random. And when, at the end of the day, when you look at results and things that happen, Tanner Scott almost does nothing better than Reed Garrett, which is kind of funny because he's going to get like $20 million.
Well, he does do a couple things much better than Reed Garrett. His fastball is much better than Reed Garrett. He throws harder than Reed Garrett. But we're in a couple year window where Tanner Scott's not that far away from being someone who literally walked the world and was someone who was on the fringe of a bad Marlins roster.
It's horrendous. He was on the Orioles when they were starting to get smart, and they said, "We're good. See you later."
No, and again, I'm gonna just
So
read
was
through
Reed Garrett. They were teammates.
Yeah, I'm gonna read through some of my favorite comments from the YouTube video last week. Howard Bunnis 4790. Reed Garrett is not an elite major league pitcher. Here are your absurd comments. It's okay for relievers to walk the ballpark. Reed Garrett can focus and throw strikes. Walks are runs, and walks by relievers are the worst. And he goes through a lot of Reed Garrett's stats. And he said blah 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 this and that. He's the righty Jake Diekman. He should never throw another pitch for the Mets.
Wow.
The reason he does not throw strikes is that when he does, his straight fastball gets tattooed. Reed Garrett's fastball does get pissed off. So again, that part's true. That's why he's split at first pitcher. And then he goes, this 32-year-old 16th round draft pick will be fine at Syracuse. Here's another great one here. I think Stearns would have been a great GM for the Wilpons. He still acts like we're in the poorhouse.
It's like, do you realize that we shouldn't be spending on the bullpen like you guys want us to? Again, by the way, Reed Garrett, 3.70 ERA. Very serviceable if you want to even get like upset about just ERA numbers. 3.7 is not bad by any means. You take that in your bullpen all year long. Also, Tanner Scott is the better reliever. Is he $15-20 million better than Reed Garrett's going to be next year? I don't think any relievers almost are going to be.
No, we're not saying the Mets would be not a better baseball team with Reed Garrett. Of course, they'd such a better baseball team with Reed Garrett, of course. But it's just, this comes back to Tanner Scott, my bad. It circles back to the conversation that we had at the top of the show where when you're running this team and more or less when you're chasing the Dodgers, you need to kind of save your bullets for the right opportunities.
I mean, think about the idea that, like, I think Vlad, again, is like $28 million and Tanner Scott looks like he's going to be around 20. You're telling me that the value that Vlad Jr. is going to bring is only $8 million more than Tanner Scott for what this team can do? There's no world. I don't care what the WAR numbers say at that point.
I think there's also a world where Tanner Scott's not as safe of an option as people think.
Yeah.
He doesn't, because again, we're only a few years away from him being like a fringy pitcher. He's really figured out the command recently, more so. But him figuring out command is still a relief pitcher that has like one of the 20 highest walk rates in all of baseball. So in saying that, again, if all the reasons you don't like Reed Garrett, that means you probably shouldn't really like Tanner Scott. Like, this isn't Edwin Diaz. This is not Josh Hader. This isn't Emmanuel Clase. This isn't someone who can put in the end of the game and be like, I'm 100% confident of you going forward for years on end. It just isn't.
He wasn't even the closer in San Diego.
Right? I mean, the closer in San Diego might be available too. The rumors that night, right after we dropped the episode, came out that Robert Suarez potentially is available in the trade market. Who, again, I think he's someone to be a lot of fun. But this isn't like a true quintessential monster reliever. I think Tanner Scott's amazing. I think next year
very good.
He's probably one of the 10 best relievers in baseball. The year after, there's a good chance he is as well. But he's probably not that much different than the guys the Mets already have. And you could probably fill in the gaps more with guys with probably two relievers like Ryan Stanek and David Robertson, rather than just the one Tanner Scott, which I think is probably more beneficial for how this Mets bullpen's currently constructed.
And truthfully, like you said, with how this Mets bullpen's currently constructed, we need more arms. It's not like we're missing one. We need more. We need more good pitchers rather than one good pitcher.
And we got a new guy for the Glob of Chaos on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. What was his name? Austin Warren?
Austin Warren. He's got a really good slider. I think it skews more sweeper because it moves a lot. And he also has the 3 fastball thing, just like I said, the Mets like
there it is.
So, I mean, again, David's listening. We know that. But it's just, again, it's about having the Glob of Chaos and having a couple guys we trust in the back. We have kind of 2.5 guys, 3-ish guys we trust in the back right now as the Glob of Chaos grows. I would like 1 or 2 more guys, middle relief, who have late inning experience, and then you build from there. And again, it's very funny. We're kind of being tongue-in-cheek, but the fact that the projection model that has been really good with projecting pitchers the last few years just became public this week. And the Mets have the 7th best bullpen in baseball in it.
What do you nerds know? You nerds know nothing. I watched every game last year, and they walked in the runs. Now, they did make it to the NLCS with a bad pitching staff, so say what you want about that. But they could have won the World Series if they didn't walk guys as much as they did last year. Okay, yeah, we got to get off our high horse there.
The one thing that kills me about all these people shit-talking David Stearns is that this trope that he had nothing to do with the Mets signing Juan Soto.
It's crazy.
How could that be possible? The president of baseball operations wasn't involved in the biggest contract of sport and any sport has ever seen. People are like, that was all Cohen. No, it wasn't. Who was in every single meeting you think was Steve Cohen? He is the president of baseball operations. Every single thing that happens if anyone in the organization breathes, David Stearns knows about it.
And Juan Soto talked so much about how he loved where the organization is heading, along with the $700 million, the vision. Who's got the laser eyes right now at the vision? It's David Stearns. It starts and ends with him. There's nobody else. Can you name the people under him making decisions? I can't.
Ben Zausmer, guys, the
Well,
Oscars
yeah,
is coming
Zausmer.
up. He's ready.
Yeah.
He's locked in.
And they're like, yeah, we're not going to hire a GM again. They're doing it again. You want to know why Sturz doesn't need one?
I mean, again, like I think it's worth being focused on the Mets vision. We know a lot of other baseball podcasts out there are spending 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes only focused on the Mets, even if they might not be a show that covers the Mets. So I think, again, all eyes are always on the Mets. But I think it's just kind of a thing where we as Mets fans, it happened to you and I too. Like we've been part of this. Like you get a sugar high.
Oh, major.
We ate a chocolate chip cookie that was the size of the fucking Empire State Building in the beginning of December. Now we're like, I need another fucking hit of this thing. So that's kind of what's happened. The fact that we have a little freeze right now, but
everyone's freezing.
I just think there's still work to be done in this team. I'm confident the work will get done, and I'm really confident the guy who's making decisions, that is David Stearns.
Fingers crossed. It's March 17th and Tanner Scott's still available, and that's when David Stearns strikes.
That's it. Again, 2 for 30. I'm all in on Tanner Scott. 2 for 30. 2 for 37.5. 100%. You want escalators to 40?
4 for 60, 4 for 80 range? Hell no.
No. If there's a fourth year, I'm out. If it's a third year, I'd think about it, but I'd be a little scared. But again, we got time, guys. It's the middle of January.
It's literally my birthday today, January 15th. We have 2.5 months until opening day. So
everybody, make sure you say happy birthday to Mark.
Thank you.
And
that's it.
I think we're good.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching this episode of the Mets'd Up Podcast. Remember to subscribe to the Mets'd Up Podcast YouTube channel. Follow us on our social media at Mets'd Up on Twitter and Instagram. If you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download, and subscribe. Shout out to today's sponsor, SNHU. Links will be in the description for them. And you can follow James on Twitter at
James_Shiano.
Otherwise, that's it. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching, and we will catch you all on the next episode. Peace out.
Peace out, guys. Let's go Mets.